The sound comes first. The hiss of the airlock seals breaking, the mechanical wheeze of respirators drawing in filtered air that tastes of industrial solvents and fear. You're awake before your eyes open, that old survival instinct screaming in the dark of the hab block, the one that tells you when something is wrong. Your eyes snap wide. The luminescent strips haven't activated yet. It's still that dead hour before dawn, when the hive holds its breath. Then the light comes. Harsh, white, artificial, wrong. It floods through the thin partition that separates your family's sleep space from the main room. Not the soft amber glow of the hab block's standard lighting. This is interrogation light, authority light. You hear your mother gasp. There are figures in the doorway, 3 of them, tall in their gray environmental suits, the kind that seals against biological and chemical contaminants. Their masks are ancient things, probably older than your hive sector, with filters that look like they're breathing in reverse, pulling something out of the air rather than filtering something in. The eyepieces are dark and reflective. You can't see faces. You're not meant to. Hab, Block 447. Theta, Sector Registration Unit 7, one of them says. His voice comes through the mask's vocalizer, electronically processed, stripped of humanity, turned into the sound of bureaucracy itself. We have the manifest! Compliance is expected. Your father is already moving, pulling himself up from the sleeping mat with the careful slowness of someone who doesn't want to provoke. He's learned this too. Everyone in the hive has learned it. When they come, you don't move fast. You don't move slow. You move exactly as expected. He stands with his hands visible, palms open, the universal gesture of a man who has nothing to hide because he has nothing at all. Your mother grabs your wrist. Her grip is impossibly tight. You can feel her fingernails digging into the soft skin on the underside of your arm, the same arm that's still weak with sleep, still warm from the thin blanket you've been lying under. The pressure is immediate and absolute. It's not a grip of affection, it's a grip of desperation. It's the grip of someone who knows what's happening and is trying to hold on to something that's about to be taken away. The second officer moves past your father without acknowledging him. He's carrying a data slate, something old and battered with a cracked screen that somehow still functions. The Imperium doesn't waste. Nothing gets thrown away until it's completely beyond repair. And even then, some adept of the Mechanicus probably still has a use for the parts. He activates the device, and a pale blue light spills across his mask's faceplate. Scanning for registered personnel, he announces. The vocalizer makes it sound like it's coming from very far away, even though he's standing maybe 3 meters from you. Your mother's grip tightens further. You can feel her trembling now, not with fear, but with the effort of holding herself together. Your little sister is still asleep in the corner, curled under a threadbare quilt that your mother has been mending for years. She doesn't wake. She's learned not to. The officer with the data slate moves the device slowly across the room, like he's performing some kind of ritual. Maybe he is. The Imperium loves its rituals, its procedures, its ways of doing things that have been done the same way for 10,000 years. You've heard that number before? 10,000 years. It's incomprehensible. It's the kind of number that makes the hive feel very small. 7 registered inhabitants, the officer says. 5 present, 2 absent. Your father flinches slightly. You see it in his shoulders. 2 of the Hab block residents are out, probably working the night shift in the manufactorums, the kind of shift that never ends, that just repeats endlessly until your body gives out. They're fortunate. They're not here. The 3rd officer hasn't moved from the doorway. He's just standing there, blocking the exit, making sure that everyone understands there's nowhere to go. His respirator hisses with every breath, a mechanical, patient sound. He's done this before. He'll do it again tomorrow and the day after that. It's just work. We're here for conscription compliance, the officer with the data slate continues. His voice is absolutely flat, completely devoid of inflection or emotion. He could be announcing the weather. The Imperium requires additional personnel for military service. Names will be selected from the registered population. Those selected will report for processing immediately. Immediately. That word hangs in the air like a physical thing. Your mother's grip on your wrist hasn't loosened. If anything, it's gotten tighter. You can feel her pulse through her fingers, rapid, panicked. You want to turn and look at her, want to see her face, but you can't move. None of you can move. Movement is the wrong response. Movement draws attention. The officer begins reading from his data slate. Names. One by one, names are called out in that same emotionless vocalizer voice. They're not names you know well. People from other hab spaces in the block, people you might have passed in the corridors but never spoken to. An old man, a woman with 3 children, a teenager who works in the food processing sector. With each name, you feel the temperature in the hab block drop a degree, and then he says yours. It's not a question. It's not a request. It's a statement of fact, read from a register that's been compiled somewhere in the depths of the hive's bureaucratic machinery, a document that decided your fate before you even knew there was a decision to be made. Your name, your registration number, your sector, your block, all of it reduced to data points in a system that has processed billions of lives before yours and will process billions more after. Your mother's hand becomes a vice. She pulls suddenly with all the strength she has left. It's not a hard pull. There's no violence in it, just desperation. She's trying to hold you in place, as if physical proximity can somehow change what's already been decided. Your wrist bends painfully. You can feel the bones shifting under the skin, feel the tendons stretching. For a moment, you think she might not let go. For a moment, you think she'll fight them right here, right now, and it will end badly for everyone. But you're already dead. You understand that now, even in this moment. The moment your name was called, something ended inside you. And what stands here now is just the body that hasn't caught up to the fact yet. You pull your wrist free gently, because she deserves that much, and step toward the officers in their gas masks. Your mother's hand becomes a vice. She pulls, suddenly, with all the strength she has left. It's not a hard pull. There's no violence in it, just desperation. She's trying to hold you in place, as if physical proximity can somehow change what's already been decided. Your wrist bends painfully. You can feel the bones shifting under the skin, feel the tendons stretching. For a moment, you think she might not let go. For a moment, you think she'll fight them right here, right now, and it will end badly for everyone. But you're already dead. You understand that now, even in this moment. The moment your name was called, something ended inside you, and what stands here now is just a body that hasn't caught up to the fact yet. You pull your wrist free, gently, because she deserves that much, and step toward the officers in their gas masks. Her hand slides down your arm as you move, fingernails leaving thin red lines on your skin. She doesn't make a sound. Your father's hand comes down on her shoulder, steadying her, holding her back from doing something they'll all pay for. Your sister stirs under her quilt, but doesn't wake. Maybe that's mercy. The officer with the data slate gestures with one gloved hand toward the doorway. The gesture is almost casual. This is routine for him. You've probably been processed the same way 1,000 times before. Same hab block, same dawn hour, same families torn apart by the machinery of necessity. He doesn't see you as a person. You're a line item, a body to fill a quota, a name that's been selected by a system that doesn't care if you live or die, only that you're accounted for. You walk toward the door. The third officer steps aside, just slightly, creating a gap wide enough for you to pass through. As you move past him, you catch the smell recycled air, old sweat, something chemical and metallic underneath it all. The smell of someone who spends their life in a sealed suit, breathing filtered air, never touching the actual atmosphere of any world. You wonder how long they've been doing this. You wonder if they remember what it felt like to breathe real air. The corridor outside the hab block is already filling with others. 5 conscripts, you count. 5 names called from 5 hab spaces. Some are older, some younger. One is crying silently, tears running down his face in the harsh white light. Another looks angry, fists clenched at his sides. A woman with gray streaking her hair stands absolutely still, like she's already accepted what's coming. The officers move through the group with practiced efficiency, herding you toward the lift shaft with the kind of patient authority that comes from knowing you have nowhere else to go. As the lift descends, taking you down through the levels of the hive block toward the processing center, you catch a last glimpse of your hab, space through the gap in the door. Your mother is standing in the middle of the room, your father's arm around her shoulders. She's looking at the place where you were standing, at the spot you've just vacated. You think you see her mouth move, maybe saying something, maybe just breathing. Then the lift doors close and she's gone. The descent feels like falling. The processing center is underground. You don't remember descending that far in the lift, but the hive is vast enough that entire districts exist below the ones you've lived in your whole life. The air here is different, colder, denser, tasting of metal and something chemical that catches in the back of your throat. There are no windows. There are no views of the hive above. There's only the endless gray of reinforced concrete and the industrial lighting that makes everything look like it's been drained of color. They separate you from the others almost immediately. A meta-key in a white coat, stained, you notice, with things you don't want to identify, points at you and gestures toward a side corridor. You follow because there's no choice, because the officers in their gas masks are still watching, because the entire architecture of this place is designed to make you understand that resistance isn't just futile, it's not even an option that exists. The corridor is narrow and lined with doors. Behind one of them, you hear someone screaming. It's not a scream of pain exactly, it's a scream of something ending. The Medicae opens a door marked with a symbol you don't recognize. Inside is a small room with walls of brushed steel and a floor drain. The light here is even harsher than in the corridors, if that's possible. It's the kind of light that leaves no shadows, no places to hide. There's a table with restraints, leather straps, old and cracked, and various instruments laid out on a metal tray. A scale, a measuring device, calipers, and something else, something that looks like it was made for burning. "Strip," the Medicae says. Not unkindly, just matter of fact. He's already pulling on latex gloves, already preparing himself for what comes next. You hesitate for maybe a second. That's all it takes. One of the officers steps into the room behind you, and suddenly hesitation feels like a luxury you can't afford. You pull off your clothes, the thin gray shirt you sleep in, the pants that are barely held together with twine, the undergarments that are more whole than fabric. You fold them carefully, placing them on a bench near the door. The Medicae doesn't acknowledge this attempt at dignity. He's already writing something on a data slate, already cataloging you. The cold hits you immediately. The room is temperature-controlled, kept at a level that's just barely survivable. Your skin erupts in goosebumps. Your hands instinctively come up to cover yourself, but you force them down. There's no point. There's no privacy here. There's nothing here but the process. "Stand on the scale," the Medicae says. You do. The scale reads your weight with a soft beep. He writes it down. Then comes the measuring height, reach, the circumference of your chest. He uses the calipers to measure the thickness of your arm. He looks at your teeth, pulling your jaw open and peering inside like you're livestock at a market. He checks your eyes, shining a light into them that's so bright it makes you see stars. He feels along your spine, pressing at each vertebra. He palpates your abdomen. He listens to your heart and lungs with a stethoscope that's ice cold against your skin. "Any injuries?" he asks. You shake your head. You're not injured. You're just thin. Everyone in the hive is thin. Food is allocated based on productivity, and most people are never productive enough to eat their fill. Your ribs are visible. Your hip bones jut out sharply. You're exactly what the Imperium expects its soldiers to look like. Barely enough meat to keep the bones functioning, but strong enough to carry a lasgun and follow orders until you fall over dead. He makes notes. Then he sets down his instruments and picks up the branding iron. You don't see him heating it. It must have been warming in some apparatus you didn't notice, some part of the room's machinery that was already prepared for this moment. The iron is shaped like a seal. The aquila, you realize, the symbol of the Imperium. Double-headed eagle with wings spread. It's small, maybe the size of your palm, but the metal glows red-orange in the harsh light. "This is your registration," the Medici says. "Your mark. Your proof of service. Don't move. You want to ask where on your body. You want to prepare yourself." But he's already stepping forward, and you understand that preparation would only make this worse. He reaches out with his left hand and grabs your shoulder. Your right shoulder, the one closest to him. His fingers dig in, holding you in place. His grip is strong. He's done this before. He knows exactly how hard to hold to keep you from flinching away. The iron comes down. There's no pain in the first microsecond. There's only the sound, a wet, meaty sizzle, like something cooking on a griddle. Then the smell hits you. Your own burning flesh. It's not like anything else. It's not like the smell of food cooking or fabric burning or anything your brain has a reference point for. It's specifically the smell of your own body being destroyed, and your nervous system reacts with immediate primal panic. The pain comes after the smell. It comes in a wave, a white-hot bloom of agony that starts in your shoulder and radiates outward. Your knees buckle. You try to scream, but the sound that comes out is barely human. A raw, choking gasp. The Medici holds you steady, his grip unrelenting, keeping you in place as the iron sears into your flesh. It feels like it's burning forever. It probably lasts less than 5 seconds. He pulls the iron away. The pain doesn't stop. It lingers, throbbing, radiating heat from the wound. You look down at your shoulder and see the mark. The aquila, burned into your skin in perfect detail. The flesh around it is already blistering, the skin turning red and white and an angry purple at the edges. The wound is weeping clear fluid mixed with blood. You're breathing in short, sharp gasps, trying to process what just happened to you. "Infection will result in termination," the Medici says. He's already setting the iron aside, already moving on to the next step. "The mark should scar cleanly if you don't tamper with it. Do not tamper with it." He hands you a tube of something, a salve or an ointment, you can't tell. The pain is too loud in your head to process anything else. You take it none-lie, your fingers trembling as they close around the tube, and you realize with a clarity that cuts through the agony that this mark is permanent. You will carry the aquila until the day you die, a brand that says you belong to the Imperium now, that you are no longer your mother's child, but a thing stamped and catalogued and owned. The transport bay smells like promethium and human waste and something else underneath. Something chemical that burns your nostrils and makes your eyes water. You're packed shoulder to shoulder with thousands of others, so tightly that you can barely move your arms, and the air has already become thick with the heat of so many bodies in such a small space. Your shoulder throbs where the brand is healing, and the salve the Medici gave you has mixed with your sweat, making the wound itch in a way that's almost worse than the pain. The transport itself is a massive cargo vessel. all riveted steel and exposed piping. You've been herded into the hold along with what must be entire regiments worth of conscripts. The loading process took hours. Officers with electroprods herding everyone up the ramps like livestock, shouting orders that nobody could hear over the noise of hydraulics and screaming. Now everyone is packed in so tightly that you can feel the person in front of you breathing, can feel the person behind you pressed against your back. There's no room to sit, no room to kneel. Everyone is standing, swaying with the movement of the ship as it prepares for launch, held upright by the sheer pressure of the crowd. You try not to think about what happens if the ship encounters turbulence. A voice crackles over a vox, speaker mounted somewhere above your head, distorted and barely intelligible. Something about departure, something about acceptable casualty rates during transport. The words wash over you without meaning. Your brain is still trying to process the fact that you're on a ship, that you're leaving, that the hive is above you, somewhere past the hull and the void, and you're never going back. You don't believe that yet. It hasn't fully integrated into your understanding of reality. Your mother is still up there. Your father is still up there. Your sister will wake up tomorrow and you won't be in your hap space, and she'll understand what happened, and she'll never see you again. But that thought is too large to hold in your head right now, so you push it aside and focus on the immediate. The crush of bodies, the heat, the difficulty of breathing. Someone near you is crying. You can't see who it is, can't see much of anything except the grimy metal wall inches from your face and the back of the head of the person in front of you. The crying is quiet, almost suppressed, like the person is trying not to draw attention. You understand that instinct. Draw attention here and you get the electroprod. You get struck down in the press of bodies and nobody stops to help because there's nowhere to help from. You just get trampled into the deck plating. The ship lurches. It's a small movement, barely noticeable, but it travels through the packed hold like a shockwave. Everyone tenses at once. For a moment, you think this is it. The ship is launching. But nothing else happens. The ship settles again. Someone behind you curses quietly. The crying continues. Time becomes strange. You don't know if minutes are passing or hours. There are no windows down here, no way to mark the progression of the day. The lighting is a constant harsh white, bright enough to hurt your eyes, but casting no shadows. You're thirsty. Your throat feels like it's lined with sand. You can smell the latrine buckets positioned at the far end of the hold, and you realize with a sinking feeling that that's where people have been relieving themselves, that the smell you've been noticing underneath everything else is human waste, and that you're going to be breathing this air for however long the journey takes. A woman near you is pressed so tightly against her neighbor that she can barely move her head. She's older, maybe in her 50s, her hair shot through with gray. She's staring at nothing, her expression completely blank. You wonder if she's already died inside, already accepted what's coming. You wonder if that's something you can learn to do. The ship lurches again. This time it's more violent, and you hear the sound of the engines. A deep, thrumming roar that vibrates through the hull and through your bones. The lights flicker once, then steady. Someone shouts something, but it's lost in the noise. The crowd shifts. Everyone leaning slightly in the same direction as the ship banks, and for a moment you think you're going to fall, that you're going to go down and be crushed under the weight of thousands of bodies. But the moment passes. Everyone stabilizes. The crowd absorbs the motion like a single organism. The roar of the engines grows louder. You feel it then, the moment the ship disengages from the docking clamps. It's a sensation more than a sound, a subtle shift in the way your body feels. The weight of gravity becomes slightly different. The ship is moving. It's actually moving. You're leaving the hive. You're leaving the world. There's a porthole somewhere in this hold. You don't know how you know that, but you do. Some fragment of information from the loading process. Some officer's voice saying something about the observation point. You try to move toward it, pushing gently against the crowd, but you don't get far. Everyone is packed too tightly. You're wedged in place, and the only way to move is if everyone around you moves, and nobody is moving because there's nowhere to go. But then the person in front of you shifts slightly, pressing back against you, and you realize they're trying to move too. For a moment, you wonder why. Then you see it. A small circle of grimy transparent steel, maybe a hand's width in diameter, set into the hull about eye level if you crane your neck. The porthole. It's scratched, almost opaque with age, but light is coming through it. Actual daylight. Real light from the hive world. You push forward. It's slow, painful work, squeezing through the press of bodies, using your elbows and shoulders to create space where none exists. People grunt in protest, but nobody actually tries to stop you. Maybe they understand. Maybe they want to see too. You work your way forward, centimeter by centimeter, until your face is close enough to the porthole to see through it. The hive is shrinking. It's impossible. But it's happening. The massive structure that fills the entire sky above your hab. Block, the towering megastructure that you've lived under your entire life, that you thought was as permanent and unchanging as gravity itself, is getting smaller. You're rising above it. The transport is ascending, pulling away from the docking platform, and with every meter you gain, the hive becomes less real. The individual levels that you could distinguish a moment ago are now blurring into a single gray mass, and then even that distinction dissolves into the industrial sprawl of the entire hive city, a wound of metal and hob blocks and smokestacks spreading across the landscape like a disease. You watch until the clouds swallow it whole, and then there is nothing but white, and then there is nothing at all. The landing platform is a scar of cracked permacrete surrounded by razor wire and watchtowers. You don't remember the descent from orbit. Most of the conscripts around you were unconscious by the end, or close to it, the recycled air and the press of bodies and the constant thrumming of the engines wearing everyone down into a kind of living death. You remember the ramp opening. You remember the light, harsh and unforgiving, nothing like the hive light you knew. You remember the sound of drill instructors screaming. They're still screaming now. The transport has been emptied in stages, groups of conscripts herded down the ramps into the training grounds like things that barely qualify as alive. You're standing in a formation that's not quite a formation. Too many people packed too close together. Officers moving through the crowd with electroprods, striking people who stand too close or too far apart, trying to beat some semblance of order into the chaos. The ground beneath your feet is hard-packed dirt and broken stone, and the sky above is a color you've never seen before. Not the gray of the hive undercity. Not the industrial white of the transport hold. This is blue, stretching up forever, and it makes you feel like you're falling upward. The drill abbot appears at the front of your formation, like something that manifested out of the air itself. He's massive, taller than anyone you've ever seen, with shoulders that seem to span the width of 3 normal men. His uniform is immaculate, pressed to razor edges, decorated with medals and insignia that you don't understand. His face is scarred, one eye clouded white with cataracts, the other sharp as a blade. He's holding a cane, a long rod of polished wood with what looks like a human bone worked into the handle, and he's tapping it against his palm with a rhythm that sounds like a heartbeat. "Listen," he says. His voice isn't loud. It's the opposite of loud. It's quiet and measured and somehow carries across the entire field, across thousands of conscripts, with perfect clarity. It's the kind of quiet that makes you lean forward to hear it, that makes your entire body tense, waiting for the next word. "You died," he says. He lets that hang in the air. The tapping continues. Tap. Tap. Like a clock counting down. You died the moment your name was called, he continues. You died in the processing center. You died in the transport hold. You died the moment your feet touched this ground. Every one of you is a corpse that hasn't fallen over yet. Do you understand? Nobody answers. Nobody dares to answer. But the drill abbot seems satisfied with the silence. He walks forward, moving through the formation with slow, deliberate steps. His cane taps against the ground with each stride. You watch him move, unable to look away, and you realize with a kind of sick certainty that he's going to stop in front of you. He's going to pick you out. You don't know how you know this, you just do. He stops 3 people to your left. You, he says, pointing with his cane at a young man who looks barely old enough to have been conscripted. What's your name? Kess, the man says. His voice is shaking. My name is Kess. The drill abbot nods slowly. Then he swings his cane in a perfect arc, and it catches Kess across the face with a sound like a branch snapping. Kess goes down immediately, blood spraying from his nose, and he doesn't get back up. He lies in the dirt, breathing in short, sharp gasps, and nobody moves to help him. Nobody even looks at him. That's the lesson, you understand. That's what the drill abbot is teaching with his cane. Your name is Trooper, the drill abbot says, addressing the entire formation now. You have no other name. You have no family. You have no home. You have nothing but your duty to the Imperium and your obedience to your officers. When I ask you a question, you answer, yes, drill abbot. Or, no, drill abbot. You do not give your name. You do not explain yourself. You do not hesitate. Do you understand? Yes, drill abbot. Thousands of voices say at once. The sound of it is almost overwhelming, a roar of compliance that echoes across the training grounds. The drill. Abbot nods. He continues his walk through the formation, and you force yourself to look straight ahead, to not draw his attention, to be as invisible as possible. But you can feel him getting closer. You can hear his footsteps. You can hear the tap-tap-tap of his cane against the ground. He stops in front of you. You don't look at him. You keep your eyes fixed on the space above his shoulder, on the impossible blue sky, on anything but his face. But you can feel his presence, can feel the weight of his attention like a physical thing pressing down on your shoulders. Look at me, he says. You look at him. His eye, the good one, is pale gray, almost colorless, and it's looking into you like it's searching for something. You wonder if he's going to hit you. You wonder if you're going to end up bleeding in the dirt like Kess, but instead, he raises his cane and taps it against your shoulder. Not hard. Just a gentle tap, like a benediction. You're still thinking you're going to survive this, he says. It's not a question. You're thinking that you're stronger than the others, or smarter, or luckier. You're thinking that somehow you're going to be the one who walks out of here alive. That's the thought that's going to kill you faster than any enemy weapon. He lowers his cane. Forget it, he says. Forget the idea that you have a future. Forget the idea that your life means anything to anyone. You're already dead. You died before you were born, probably. The only thing left is to teach your corpse to be useful before it stops moving entirely. Now, get to your barracks. You have 14 hours before the first training cycle begins, and you're going to spend them learning the names and faces of every trooper in your unit because you're going to die together, and the only comfort you're going to get is knowing you weren't alone when it happened. He turns and walks away, leaving you standing in the dust of the parade ground as the other conscripts shuffle past like ghosts, already claiming their spaces in the dark. You realize, with a clarity that feels like drowning, that he wasn't threatening you. He was being kind. The barracks are long, low structures of corrugated metal that rattle in the wind like something dying slowly. Your bunk is a metal frame with a thin mattress that smells like mildew and the sweat of 1,000 conscripts before you. You have a footlocker, a uniform that doesn't quite fit, and a lasgun that feels like it weighs more than your entire body. The lasgun is the only thing that matters now. Drill. Abbot Kren stands at the front of the training ground with a demonstration weapon held across his palms like an offering to the Emperor. You're standing in formation with 42 other conscripts, and the sun is still high enough that it's beating down on the top of your head like a hammer. Your shoulder throbs where the brand is healing. Your feet already have blisters on the blisters. You haven't eaten since yesterday morning. None of that matters. This is Akkadian pattern lasgun, Kren says, his voice carrying the weight of ritual. It has served the Imperium for 300 years. It has killed more enemies of mankind than you will ever see in your lifetime. It is more important than your life. It is more important than your family. It is more important than your soul. You will learn to take it apart and reassemble it in the dark, blindfolded, while under fire. You will learn to do this faster than you thought possible. You will learn to do this in your sleep. You will learn to do this while bleeding. He pauses, taps his cane against the ground. Because if you don't, you will die screaming, and your death will be meaningless. The first lesson takes 6 hours. Kren breaks the lasgun down into its component parts with movements that are almost graceful. The barrel sliding free, the firing mechanism, the power pack housing, the receiver group. Each piece is laid out on a cloth in front of you, arranged in a specific order, and you watch with the intensity of someone trying to memorize the face of a god. Around you, 42 other conscripts are watching the same demonstration, and you know that by the end of the day, some of them will still be confused about which piece goes where. Those people will not survive the next week. Kren walks through the conscripts, handing each of you a lasgun. Yours is warm from the sun, and the metal is rough under your fingers, nothing like the smooth demonstration weapon. The safety catch is worn, and the stock has been dented and repaired so many times that the metal is wavy in places. This gun has killed people. You can feel it in the weight of it. You can feel it in the way the metal seems to hum with some kind of purpose. Now, Kren says, you will disassemble your weapons. You will do this slowly. You will do this carefully. You will do this correctly. If you damage your weapon, you will be beaten. If you lose a part, you will be beaten. If you simply fail to understand what I have shown you, you will be beaten. Begin. Your fingers shake as you reach for the barrel of your lasgun. The safety catch resists at first, then gives way with a soft click. You slide the barrel free, and it feels momentous, like you've just broken something sacred. But you keep moving. Your fingers finding the firing mechanism, pulling it away from the receiver, setting it on the cloth in front of you. The power pack housing comes next, and then the stock, and then the smaller pieces. The charging coil, the lens assembly, the trigger guard. Each piece you remove feels like you're undressing something that should stay clothed. Around you, other conscripts are working at different speeds. Some are moving faster than you, their fingers already confident with the mechanics. Others are moving slower, hesitating over each piece, trying to remember Kren's exact sequence. You focus on your own weapon and try to ignore them. It takes you 43 minutes to completely disassemble your lasgun. When you're done, all the pieces are laid out in front of you, and you can see the logic of it, how each piece fits into the next, how the whole thing is designed to be taken apart and put back together by someone with basic training and a lot of desperation. Kren walks through the formation, inspecting each weapon, nodding or pausing. When he pauses, the conscript whose weapon he's looking at goes very still. He pauses in front of trainee Hess, 3 positions to your right. The charging coil, Kren says, pointing with his cane. Where is it? Hess's face goes white. You can see him scanning his pieces, looking for something he missed, something he lost. I I don't know, Drill Abbot. I thought Kren brings his cane down on Hess's hands, and Hess screams. The cane comes down again, and Hess is trying to pull his hands away, but Kren is faster, more practiced, and the sound of the impacts is wet and terrible. When Kren finally stops, Hess is cradling his hands against his chest, blood dripping from his fingers onto his uniform. You will find it, Kren says calmly. And then you will reassemble your weapon, and then you will do it again. And you will keep doing it until you can do it without thinking. Because if you lose a charging coil in combat, the soldier next to you dies. The entire squad dies. The Imperium loses ground. Entire worlds fall. And it will be because you were careless. He moves on, and you force yourself to look down at your own pieces, to make sure everything is there, to count them like they're the most important things in the universe. The reassembly takes longer than the disassembly. Your hands are shaking worse now, and you realize it's because you're terrified. Not of Kren. You've already seen what he does, but of failing, of losing a piece, of getting something wrong. Your fingers move slowly, deliberately, inserting the charging coil back into its housing, sliding the receiver group back into place. The stock goes last, and when you slide it home, you hear the soft click of it seating properly, and for a moment you feel something almost like pride. You've done it. You've taken apart a weapon and put it back together. Kren inspects your work. He picks up your lasgun, sights down the barrel, operates the charging mechanism. He hands it back to you and nods once. Again, he says. You disassemble it again. 3 weeks of this. 3 weeks of disassembly and reassembly until your fingers move through the motions without your mind having to direct them. 3 weeks of Kren's cane, of Kren's voice, of watching conscripts fail and be broken for their failures. 3 weeks of 14-hour days, of sleeping 4 hours a night on a mattress that smells like death, of eating gruel that tastes like machine oil and tastes the same, whether it's meant to be breakfast or dinner. 3 weeks of learning that your body is a machine, and like your lasgun, it can be stripped down and rebuilt into something more efficient, more obedient, more useful to the Imperium. Your hands don't shake anymore when you disassemble your weapon. Your mind doesn't wander. You've learned that wandering minds get beaten, and you've learned that there's a kind of peace in not thinking at all. Just the muscle memory, just the repetition, just the click and slide and lock of each piece finding its place. Around you, the other conscripts have learned it too, the ones who survived the first week anyway. There are fewer of them now. You don't ask where the ones who are gone have gone. You don't want to know. The training ground has changed. The simple parade ground where Kren first addressed you has been transformed into something more complex. A maze of trenches dug into the hard earth, walls of stacked sandbags, targets made of wood and canvas that look vaguely human-shaped. This is where you're learning to shoot. Today is live fire. You're standing in a trench with 15 other conscripts, and your lasgun feels different now. Heavier, more real. The power pack is fully charged. You can feel the slight hum of it through the stock, and the barrel is cool against your palm. Kren is standing on the elevated firing platform above you, watching with his one good eye, his cane resting across his shoulders like he's crucifying himself on it. You will fire at the targets, he says. You will aim for center mass. You will not stop firing until I tell you to stop. You will not look around. You will not hesitate. You will not think. You will only fire. Do you understand? Yes, Drill Abbot, you say with the others, and the sound of it echoes off the trench walls. Fire, Kren says. The lasgun kicks against your shoulder, and the world narrows to the target in front of you. The last bolt streaks out, a line of coherent light that burns through the canvas and leaves a smoking hole. You're already pulling the trigger again and again, And around you the other conscripts are doing the same, and the noise is deafening. The constant crack of las fire, the sound of power packs cycling, the smell of ozone and burned canvas filling the trench until you can barely breathe. Your target is shredded now, barely recognizable as human-shaped, just a collection of smoking holes and burned fabric. You keep firing anyway because Kren hasn't told you to stop, and stopping without permission is a beating, and you've already been beaten twice this week. Then something changes. The firing stops. Not all of it. Most of the conscripts are still shooting, still cycling their power packs, still moving through the motions like machines. But one of the conscripts has stopped. One of the conscripts has turned around. It's Voss. You know Voss. He's been in your unit since the beginning, a thin man with hollow cheeks and eyes that have been getting progressively more distant over the past 3 weeks. He's always been quiet. Always been in the back of the formation. Always been the kind of person you don't think about until you notice he's there. But now he's turned around, and his lasgun is pointed at the conscripts behind him, and his face has gone slack and empty in a way that makes your stomach drop. Voss, Kren says, his voice still calm, still measured. Turn around and resume firing. Voss doesn't turn around. His finger is on the trigger, and his eyes are fixed on something that isn't there, something that only he can see. His lips are moving, but no sound is coming out. His entire body is shaking. Voss, Kren says again, this is a direct order. Voss screams. It's not a word. It's not even a sound that a human throat should be able to make. It's a raw animal noise that seems to come from somewhere deep in his chest, from some place that's been broken and is now leaking out of him. He spins around, his lasgun swinging, and for a moment you think he's going to fire into the formation, but instead, he's running. He's running out of the trench, scrambling up the sandbag wall, his boots slipping on the loose earth, his screams not stopping, just continuing in one long, unbroken wail. Fire, Kren says. 3 lost bolts catch Voss in the back before you even register that Kren has given the order. The bolts are close together, 3 points of a triangle between his shoulder blades, and they burn through his uniform and his flesh and leave smoking craters in his back. Voss stumbles, but he doesn't fall. He keeps running, keeps screaming, his legs still moving even though they shouldn't be able to, even though there's no way they should be able to carry him anymore. Fire, Kren says again. You don't know if he's giving the order to you specifically or to all of you, but you find yourself raising your lasgun, finding the target, squeezing the trigger. The lost bolt streaks out and catches Voss in the left shoulder, and you see the flesh blacken and char. But he's still running. He's still screaming. More bolts. Dozens of them, from a dozen different conscripts, all of you following Kren's orders, all of you firing at the thing that used to be Voss. He makes it another 20 meters across the open ground before his legs finally give out, and when he falls, he's still screaming. He's crawling now, dragging himself forward with his arms, his legs trailing behind him like they're not connected to his body anymore. The bolts keep coming, and you keep firing, and Voss keeps screaming, and the sound of it is the most terrible thing you've ever heard because it doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. You count the seconds. You're good at counting now. Kren taught you to count, taught you to measure your ammunition, taught you that mercy is a luxury the Imperium cannot afford, and somewhere between the 10th second and the 20th, you stop thinking about Voss as a person and start thinking about him as a target that needs to be neutralized. And that thought, that sudden, horrible absence of hesitation, tells you everything you need to know about what you're becoming. The parade ground at dawn is different now. There are no targets, no sandbags, no trenches, just the flat, hard earth and the conscripts arranged in perfect formation, row after row, column after column, stretching back so far that you can barely see the ones at the rear. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the sky is starting to lighten at the edges, turning from black to deep purple to the color of a bruise. You're standing in the third row, your lasgun held at port arms, your uniform freshly cleaned, your boots polished. You've been standing here for 40 minutes. Your legs have gone numb. Drill. Abbot Kren stands on the elevated platform with a lectern in front of him. Behind him stand 3 officers in dress uniforms, their medals catching what little light there is. One of them is holding a data slate. The other 2 are just standing there, their faces blank, their eyes fixed on the middle distance like they're looking at something that isn't in this world. You know what's coming. The training cycle is over. The 3 weeks of disassembly and reassembly, the live fire exercises, the forced marches through terrain that tears your feet apart, the lessons in trench construction and field sanitation, and how to recognize the signs of heresy in a fellow soldier. All of it is finished. Now comes the accounting. Now comes the moment when they tell you how many of you there were when you started, and how many of you there are now, and what happened to the ones who are gone. Kren raises his hand, and the parade ground goes completely silent. Even the wind stops. Even your own heartbeat seems to pause. At the beginning of this training cycle, Kren says, his voice carrying across the parade ground with the weight of a funeral bell, you were 4,237 souls. You were conscripted by order of the Administratum. You were brought here to become soldiers of the Imperium. You were given the chance to serve humanity's greatest cause. He pauses. His eye sweeps across the formation, and you feel it pass over you like the beam of a searchlight. Today, he continues, you are 3,497. 940 souls have been removed from the training program. They have been deemed unfit for service. They have been found wanting. They have failed the Imperium. The officer with the data slate steps forward. He begins to read names. Trainee Abrams, Kane. Trainee Abrams, David. Trainee Abrams, Soren. Trainee Acosta, Maria. Trainee Acosta, Pedro. The names flow like water, like a river of people being washed away. You listen for familiar names, but the conscripts around you have never been people to you. They've been faces in formation, voices in the dark, bodies that were there yesterday and gone today. You never learned their names. You never asked. Asking meant caring, and caring meant hurting when they disappeared, and the Imperium has no use for hurt. Trainee Voss, Marcus. You hear that one. Your attention snaps to the sound of it, like it's a last bolt that just passed your head. Voss. The screaming stopped 3 days ago. They buried what was left of him in a mass grave behind the training ground, and Kren made you all walk past it so you could see what happened to people who broke. So you could see what would happen to you if you broke. The list continues. Hundreds of names. Thousands of names. The officer reads them in a flat, mechanical voice that never changes pitch, never hesitates, never suggests that these are people or that their deaths mean anything. They're just data, just statistics, just names that need to be crossed off a ledger. Trainee Corin, Helena. Trainee Corin, James. Trainee Corin, Sophia. 3 Corins. You wonder if they were related. You wonder if they knew each other. You wonder if they died together or alone. You don't let yourself wonder for very long. The sun is rising now, and the light is turning the parade ground red. It's the color of rust. It's the color of old blood that's been sitting in the sun too long. The officer keeps reading, and the names keep coming, and you stand very still and very straight and try not to think about the fact that you're one of the ones who survived. You try not to think about why. You try not to think about what that means. Around you, other conscripts are doing the same thing. Some of them are crying silently, tears running down their faces while their eyes stay fixed straight ahead. Some of them look like they've already died and no one has bothered to tell them yet. Some of them have that look that Voss had, right before he broke, that look of someone who's been pushed too far and is trying very hard to push back, trying very hard not to scream. Trainee Vess, Catherine. Trainee Vess, Marcus. Trainee Vess, Theodore. 3 Vesses. You think about the Vess who's in your unit, the one who hasn't spoken to you since you shot the thing that was grabbing him during the night firing exercise. You don't think those Vesses are him. You hope they're not him, but you're not sure, and you can't ask, and you won't find out until you see him, or don't see him, at the next formation. The list takes 2 hours. By the end of it, your legs are shaking so badly that you're not sure they'll support your weight when you're finally ordered to stand at ease. Your throat is dry. Your heart is beating so hard that you can feel it in your teeth. 940 names. 940 people who were here 3 weeks ago and are not here now. 940 souls that the Imperium has written off as acceptable losses in the process of making soldiers out of civilians. When the officer finishes reading, he hands the data slate back to one of the dress uniform officers, and Kren steps forward again. These conscripts failed, he says. They could not meet the minimum physical standards. They could not master the basic weapon. They could not maintain discipline. They could not accept the will of the Imperium. And so they have been removed from the program. Some of them are being retrained for other duties. Some of them are being processed for labor battalions. Some of them are simply gone. He lets that last part hang in the air for a moment. You are the ones who survived. That means you are ready to die properly. The transport deck of the Valkyrie smells like recycled air and fierce sweat. You're packed shoulder to shoulder with 200 other conscripts, pressed against the cold metal wall of the dropship, your lasgun held across your chest because there's nowhere else to put it. The deck is vibrating. A constant bone-deep thrumming that comes from the engines, from the vast machinery that's carrying you away from the training ground and towards something that everyone calls the front, but no one will describe in any detail. The light strips overhead flicker every few seconds, casting everything in a stuttering, nauseous glow. Next to you, a conscript you don't recognize is praying quietly. His lips are moving, but you can't hear the words over the engine noise. You wonder what God he thinks is listening. This is your last day of not knowing what you're dying for. The Valkyrie lurches, not the normal shifting of a transport in flight, but something violent and sudden, like the ship just hit something solid. Your stomach drops. Around you, conscripts stumble, some of them falling into each other, a ripple of instability spreading through the packed formation. The praying conscript catches himself against your shoulder, and you feel his whole body go rigid. "Contact," someone says over the Vox. The voice is calm, professional, the kind of voice that belongs to someone who's been shot at before and lived. "Anti-air fire, starboard side." Evasive maneuvers. The Valkyrie banks hard to the left, and you're thrown against the wall. Your shoulder hits metal hard enough to send pain shooting down your arm, but you don't cry out. Crying out is weakness, and weakness gets you killed, and you've been beaten enough times in the past 3 weeks to understand that lesson. Around you, other conscripts are less controlled. Someone screams, someone else vomits. The smell of it mixes with the recycled air and the sweat, and your stomach heaves, but you force it down. You've learned to force things down. Another impact. This one is different. This one comes with sound. A terrible, rending shriek of metal tearing, the sound of the ship's hull being violated. The lights flicker and go dark for a moment, and in that moment of absolute darkness, you hear something that sounds like rain, except rain doesn't sound like that. Rain doesn't sound like shrapnel ricocheting through an enclosed space. The lights come back on. Corin is standing next to you. You know his name because you've been standing next to him in formation for 3 weeks, because you've watched him disassemble and reassemble his lasgun with the same mechanical precision you've learned, because his face has become as familiar as your own reflection. Which is to say, you've stopped really looking at it. He's a thin man, maybe 5 years older than you, with dark hair and the kind of hollow look that everyone in the training camp has developed. He's staring straight ahead, his expression unchanged, his lasgun still held at port arms. There's a piece of shrapnel sticking out of his neck. It's maybe 4 centimeters long, a jagged scrap of metal that's punched through the collar of his uniform and lodged in the soft tissue just above his collarbone. There's blood running down his neck, but not a lot of it. Not yet. His eyes are still open, still focused on nothing in particular. You watch as his left eye twitches, then his right eye twitches. Then both of his hands twitch, a synchronized spasm that runs through his fingers and makes his lasgun jerk against his chest. His jaw clenches. His entire body goes rigid, like he's been electrocuted, like every muscle in his frame has been seized by something external and is being forced to contract all at once. He makes a sound, not a scream, not a word, just a sound like air being forced out of a punctured lung. And then he falls. He doesn't collapse. He doesn't crumple. He just falls, like his legs have been cut out from under him, and he hits the deck with a wet, heavy sound. His body continues to twitch. You can see the shrapnel moving with the spasms, see the blood starting to flow more freely now that his heart is still pumping, but his body is no longer able to contain it. His mouth opens and closes. His fingers claw at the deck. His eyes are still open, still looking at nothing, and you realize that he's not dead yet, that he's still in there somewhere, trapped in a body that's been broken and is now falling apart piece by piece. The Valkyrie shudders again. "Starboard engine hit," the calm voice says over the Vox. "Compensating. All passengers, brace for emergency descent. Emergency descent, those words mean something. You don't know what they mean, not really, but you know they're not good. Around you, conscripts are starting to panic. Someone is shouting orders that no one is following. Someone else is trying to move toward the cockpit, as if they could somehow make the pilot fly better through sheer force of will. The deck is tilting now, the ship listing to one side, and you have to grab onto the wall to keep from sliding toward the group of conscripts pressed against the far side of the transport. Corin is still twitching. His body has stopped moving across the deck now. The angle of the ship has pinned him against a support strut, but his fingers are still clawing, still trying to grab at something that isn't there. His eyes are starting to glaze over, but his body doesn't seem to understand that the brain behind those eyes has already left. It's like watching a machine that's been turned off but hasn't stopped moving yet, still cycling through the motions of being alive, even though the thing that made it alive is gone. You look away. This is your last moment of being able to look away. The Valkyrie's descent becomes less controlled. The deck beneath your feet is angling more steeply now, and the sound of the engines has changed. There's a grinding quality to it, a sound of metal being stressed beyond its tolerance, of systems failing in sequence. Someone starts praying louder now, not bothering to whisper anymore, just screaming prayers at the metal ceiling like the Emperor can hear him through the hull. Maybe he can. You don't know. You've stopped believing in anything except the weight of your lasgun and the certainty that you're going to die. The Valkyrie hits something solid. It's not a landing. Landings are controlled, deliberate things. This is an impact. This is a collision, a violation, the aircraft buckling around you like a fist closing on something fragile. You are thrown forward into the man in front of you, and then everything is screaming metal and screaming men, and the terrible silence that comes when the world stops moving all at once. Your boots hit mud. That's the first thing you notice. Not the sky, not the smell, not the sound of the guns that are somewhere in the distance. Just the mud. It's thick and cold, and it sucks at your feet as you stumble forward out of the transport's broken cargo ramp, trying to move because everyone behind you is moving, because standing still means you'll be trampled by the weight of 200 panicked conscripts, desperate to get out of the aircraft before something else catches fire. The mud is everywhere. It coats your boots up to the ankle, then the shin, then higher as you push forward, and the ground beneath you gets softer, wetter, less like solid earth and more like the consistency of a wound. Your leg sinks up to your knee, and you have to wrench it free with a sound like tearing fabric. Around you, other conscripts are doing the same, pulling themselves out of the mud, gasping, looking around for something that looks like an officer, like someone who knows what comes next. No one knows what comes next. The Valkyrie is burning behind you. You can feel the heat on your back, can smell the promethium and the melting synthetics, and something else underneath it, something organic that you don't want to identify. The impact killed maybe 50 of the conscripts on board. You saw bodies, or what used to be bodies, still tangled in the wreckage as you climbed over the twisted metal. The rest of you made it out. You're not sure if that's lucky, or if it's just prolonging something that was always going to end the same way. The mud is getting thicker. You're moving uphill now, away from what you realize is a depression in the earth. A shell crater probably, or a trench that someone dug and then abandoned. Behind you, conscripts are still climbing out of the wreckage. Ahead of you, there's a ridgeline, and beyond that ridgeline, there's nothing but gray sky and the sound of that sound. You hear it at the exact moment your boot finds solid ground on the other side of the ridge, at the exact moment you pull yourself up and over the lip of the crater and see what's beyond. It's a wet sound, like something breathing through a mouth full of liquid. It's a clicking sound, like thousands of insects, all clicking their mandibles at the same time. It's a shriek that sounds like it's coming from somewhere that shouldn't be able to produce sound, somewhere that exists in a register that human ears weren't designed to process, but are processing anyway, are forced to process, are being torn open by the sheer wrongness of it. The sound is everywhere. It's coming from your left and your right, and from somewhere ahead of you, and from somewhere below you, and you realize, with a clarity that cuts through the adrenaline and the shock and the disorientation of the crash, that the sound is coming from all around you. The sound is surrounding you. The sound is the land itself, or something in the land, or something that has become the land, something vast and alive and aware of the fact that you've just landed in its territory. You turn your head, and you see them. They're in the trench line, the one you didn't notice at first because it blends into the landscape, because the landscape has been reshaped around them, or they've reshaped themselves to fit into the landscape. You're not sure which. They're tall, impossibly tall, with bodies that don't move the way bodies should move. Their skin is chitinous, armored plating that catches the light in a way that makes your eyes hurt. They have too many limbs. They have mouths that open in places that mouths shouldn't open. And they're looking at you. All of them are looking at you. The sound, that wet, clicking shriek, gets louder. Around you, conscripts are finally noticing. Around you, people are screaming. Someone is firing his lasgun, the bolt going wild, hitting nothing, just adding to the chaos. An officer. You don't recognize him, don't know his name, is shouting orders that no one can hear over the sound. The sound is everything now. The sound is the only thing that matters. The sound is the thing that tells you, in a language that isn't words, but is somehow more honest than words could ever be, that you are not coming home. You are not coming home. You're going to die here, in this mud, in this trench, in this place that smells like rot and tastes like copper and sounds like the death rattle of something that was never meant to be alive in the first place. You're going to die because you were conscripted. You're going to die because the Imperium needed bodies, and you were a body. And this is what bodies are for. You're going to die in the dark, or in the light, or in the twilight between the two, and no one will remember your name, and no one will care, and the war will continue without you, like you were never here at all. The creatures move. They move fast, faster than something that large should be able to move, faster than anything should be able to move. They pour over the lip of the trench like water, like a tide, like an infection spreading through healthy tissue. You raise your lasgun. Your hands are shaking. You fire. The bolt hits something and it doesn't slow down. You fire again, and again. Around you, other conscripts are doing the same, and some of the creatures fall, and some of them don't. And you realize that you don't know how many of them there are, that they might be infinite, that they might just keep coming forever. Sergeant Thorne is somewhere behind you. You haven't seen him since the crash, haven't heard his voice over the Vox. You don't know if he's alive or dead. You don't know if it matters. You reload your lasgun and you fire into the tide, and you understand, with a certainty that settles into your bones like cold, that this is the last thing you're ever going to do. 4 days is long enough to know someone, long enough to know that Sergeant Thorne has a scar on his left temple that he got from a ricochet during training. Long enough to know that he checks the ammunition count twice, even when everyone else checks it once. Long enough to know that when he says, "Hold this position," he means you're going to die here, but you're going to die standing, not running. 4 days is long enough to know someone. It's not long enough to prepare for what happens when they stop being a person and become a memory. The trench smells like cordite and blood and something worse underneath it. Something that's been rotting in the mud for longer than you've been alive. The walls are slick with water that might be rainwater or might be something that seeped up from below. You don't ask questions anymore. You've learned that questions are a luxury, that the only thing that matters is the next order, the next magazine, the next moment that you don't die in. Thorne is 6 meters to your left, visible through the gray afternoon light that filters down into the trench like dirty water. He's checking the firing positions, moving along the line, making sure everyone has ammunition, making sure everyone understands that the creatures have been quiet for 8 hours and that quiet doesn't mean they're gone. Quiet means they're planning. Quiet means something is about to happen. You've learned to hate quiet. The shelling started this morning. Not artillery, something else. Something that sounds like the earth is being torn apart from underneath, like something vast is scratching at the bedrock and trying to claw its way up. The explosions are irregular, unpredictable. Sometimes there's 30 seconds between them. Sometimes there's 5 minutes. Sometimes there's a series of them rapid fire, one after another, until your ears are ringing and your vision is blurry from the concussion, and you can't remember if you're still alive or if this is what being dead feels like. Thorne said, "The creatures are tunneling." He said they're under the trench line, moving through the earth like blood cells through a vein, positioning themselves for something. He didn't say what. Thorne has learned the same lesson you have, that the only thing worse than bad news is the knowledge that it's coming, and you can't do anything to stop it. The ground lurches. It's not a distant explosion this time. It's underneath you. The earth convulses, a sudden violent heave that throws you against the trench wall and knocks the wind out of your lungs. Around you, conscripts are stumbling, falling, some of them sliding down into the mud that accumulates at the bottom of the trench. Someone is screaming. You can't tell if it's fear or pain, or just the sound of a man realizing that the ground itself has become an enemy. The trench wall to your left bulges outward, not cracks, not fractures. A bulge, like something massive is pressing against the earth from the other side, like the dirt itself is being pushed out of the way by something that doesn't care about obstacles. You watch the bulge grow, watch the mud darken as whatever is underneath reaches the surface, watch the moment when the earth gives up and splits open. The creature that emerges is smaller than the ones you saw on the first day, Or maybe it just seems smaller because you're closer to it, because your mind is trying to make sense of something that doesn't have a shape it can comprehend. It has a head, sort of. It has limbs, or tentacles, or appendages that serve the function of limbs. It has a mouth, and the mouth is opening, and inside the mouth there are teeth. Not rows of teeth. Teeth everywhere. Teeth lining the inside of what might be a throat. Teeth covering what might be a tongue. Teeth arranged in spirals and fractals and patterns that hurt to look at. Thorn is moving toward it. You don't remember him giving an order. You don't remember him deciding to charge. He's just suddenly there, between you and the creature, his lasgun raised, his body moving with a kind of controlled precision that you've learned to recognize as the thing that separates soldiers from conscripts. He's firing, the bolts hitting the creature's head, hitting its body, hitting the appendages that are reaching for him. The creature shrieks, that wet clicking sound that you've heard 1,000 times in the past 4 days but never gets less wrong. And it moves toward him, and Thorn keeps firing, and the world narrows down to the sound of his lasgun and the sound of the creature and the moment that everything changes. The creature's body extends, not reaches, extends. It's like watching something unfold, like the thing has hidden segments that are suddenly pulling away from each other, revealing length that wasn't visible before. One of the appendages wraps around Thorn's torso. You watch his face change. You watch the understanding hit him. You watch the moment when he realizes that he's made a mistake, that he's gotten too close, that the creature isn't interested in his lasgun anymore. The creature pulls. The appendage tightens, and Thorn's body goes rigid. For a moment, nothing happens. For a moment, the world holds its breath. Then the creature pulls again, and this time the pulling doesn't stop. This time the pulling is accompanied by a sound like tearing, like something that was meant to stay together is being forced apart. Thorn's mouth opens. Whether he's screaming or trying to breathe, you can't tell. The sound doesn't come out. The sound is trapped inside him by the pressure of the appendage, by the sheer force of something that is infinitely stronger than a man. The creature pulls a third time. Thorn's body comes apart. Not explosively. Not messily in the way that you'd expect from something being torn in half. It's almost surgical in its precision. The creature pulls, and Thorn's torso separates from his hips, separated at the waist like someone's taken a knife and made a cut, and then just pulled the two pieces apart. His upper body falls forward into the mud. His lower body remains standing for a moment, held up by the appendage, held up by the creature's grip, before it falls backward into the trench. Blood is everywhere. It's on the trench wall. It's pooling in the mud. It's on your face and your uniform and your hands, and you don't remember how it got there. You don't remember moving. You don't remember screaming, but you must have been screaming because your throat is raw and your chest is heaving and your ears are ringing with something that might be the creature's shriek or might be your own voice, broken and animal, echoing back at you from the trench walls. The creature's silhouette withdraws into the darkness above, and you are alone with what remains of Sergeant Thorn. The darkness is absolute. Not the darkness of night, where your eyes might adjust and find shapes in the shadows. Not the darkness of a hab block with its failing lumens. This is the darkness of a trench that's been dug deep enough that the walls block out the sky, deep enough that whatever light remains in the world can't reach you. This is the darkness that comes after 4 days of watching people die in ways that shouldn't be possible, after 4 days of learning that the creatures don't need light to see you, that they can smell you, that they can taste the fear in your sweat and follow it like a beacon. Thorn's body is still here. You haven't moved it. You couldn't move it. The order came down the Vox to hold the line, and holding the line means you stay in your position. And your position is 6 meters from what used to be Sergeant Thorn, so you've been standing here in the dark with a corpse, listening to the wet sounds it makes as things crawl through it, as the earth reclaims it, as the mud slowly pulls it deeper. Your lasgun is hot in your hands. You've been firing for you don't know how long. Time has stopped meaning anything. There was a moment when the creatures came, when they came in waves, when they came from the trench wall and from above and from underneath, and it seemed like they would never stop. You fired until your barrel was glowing in the darkness, a red eye in the black, and the creatures kept coming, and you kept firing, and the people around you were screaming and dying, and you were still firing. Vess is to your right. You know this because he's the only one still firing in that direction, the only one whose lasgun bolts are visible in the dark, the only one whose breathing you can hear between the shots. Vess hasn't said anything in 4 days. You don't know if he's traumatized or if he's just accepted what Thorn told you the first day, that you're already dead, that you died when you were conscripted, that everything that comes after is just the body not knowing it yet. The creatures have gone quiet again. The sudden absence of their shrieking is worse than the sound itself. You can hear your own breathing now. You can hear Vess reloading. You can hear something moving in the darkness above you, something that's dragging itself along the top of the trench wall, something that's large enough that you can hear the soil shifting under its weight. You raise your lasgun. The targeting reticle glows faintly in the darkness, a small circle of red light that's supposed to help you aim, but mostly just tells the creatures where you are. You know this. Everyone knows this. You do it anyway because the alternative is not firing, and not firing means death, and firing means at least you did something, at least you tried, at least when you die you can tell yourself that you didn't go quietly. The thing above the trench wall moves closer. You can hear it breathing. The sound is wet, labored, like something that shouldn't be breathing at all is forcing air through a system that was never designed for respiration. You can hear multiple mouths. You can hear the clicking of mandibles. You can hear something that might be anticipation or might just be hunger, a sound that has no equivalent in any human language because humans have never needed a word for what a creature like this feels when it knows its prey is cornered. Vess doesn't move. You want to warn him. You want to tell him to look up, to see what's coming, to prepare himself for the moment when the darkness reaches down and takes him. But you don't have any words. Your throat is raw from screaming hours ago. Your voice is gone. All you have is your lasgun and your understanding that something is about to happen and your inability to stop it. The creature drops. It falls from the top of the trench wall with a speed that seems impossible for something so large, a speed that suggests it's not falling but diving, not dropping but attacking. In the fraction of a second before it lands, you see its shape against the darker darkness of the sky, a silhouette that's all wrong, all teeth and appendages and something in the center that might be a head but might be something worse. It lands on top of Vess. Vess screams. It's a sound you've never heard before, a sound that exists in a register above pain, beyond fear, in a place where the human voice goes when the thing that makes you human is being stripped away. An appendage, thick, muscled, covered in barbs that catch the faint light from your lasgun's reticle, wraps around his torso. Another one snakes around his arm. A third reaches for his head, and you see the moment when Vess understands that this is the end, that no amount of screaming will change what's about to happen, that he's going to die and there's nothing anyone can do about it. You fire. The bolt hits the creature in what might be a shoulder, what might be a section of its body that serves a similar function. The creature shrieks, and for a moment its grip on Vess loosens, and you think, for just a moment, that you've done something, that you saved him, that the shot meant something. Then the creature's grip tightens again, tighter than before, and you realize you've just made it angry. You fire again. This time, the bolt hits one of the appendages, the one wrapped around Vess's arm. The appendage convulses, and for a moment you think it's going to release him. But instead, it just pulls harder, and you hear something crack, and Vess's scream changes pitch, becomes something higher and more desperate and more raw. You fire. Again. 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 The bolts come rapid fire, barely pausing between shots, your finger moving on the trigger with an automaticity that suggests your body has decided to keep fighting, even though your mind has already given up. Some of the shots hit, some of them miss. The creature is too large, too fast, too incomprehensible for your aiming to matter much. But you keep firing because Vess is still alive, and that means there's still a chance, even though you know there's no chance, even though you know that the only thing your firing is doing is prolonging his suffering. The creature pulls. It's the same motion that bisected Thorn, the same inexorable force, the same moment when you understand that you're watching something die and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Vess's body doesn't come apart the way Thorn's did. Instead, the creature just pulls him upward, pulling him off the fire step and into the darkness above the trench, and you shoot him 3 times in the back because it's the only mercy you can offer. The days stop having names. Monday becomes indistinguishable from Tuesday becomes indistinguishable from the day you can't remember anymore because the calendar in your head broke somewhere around week 8, and now time moves in a different measurement. Patrol, ambush, sleep, patrol, ambush, sleep. The cycle is so complete, so total, that you sometimes wonder if you've been doing this for 6 months or 6 years, or if 6 months is a measurement that only applies to people who aren't in the trench. People who aren't you. Your boots are held together with wire. The sole of the left one has separated from the upper, and every step makes a sound like something wet being pulled apart. You've stopped noticing it. You've stopped noticing most things. The sound of your own breathing. The way your stomach has stopped asking for food and instead just generates a constant dull ache that you've learned to interpret as normal. The tremor in your hands when you wake up. If you sleep in a way that qualifies as waking up, if the moment when your eyes open and you realize you're still alive counts as consciousness rather than just a different kind of nightmare, patrol goes out at dawn. You don't know how many of you there are anymore. The roster changes too frequently to track. Names don't matter. Faces don't matter. What matters is whether the person next to you is still breathing and can follow orders and won't collapse before the patrol is finished. You've learned not to ask names. You've learned not to look at people's faces for more than a second. You've learned that attachment is a luxury that gets you killed, that remembering someone's voice makes it harder to function when that voice stops coming from behind you. The landscape outside the trench is broken, cratered, scorched in places where the artillery has turned the earth into something that looks like diseased skin. In other places, the ground is too green, too fertile, too alive with things that shouldn't be alive. The creatures have been dead for 6 weeks, killed by something, you don't know what, something that made them just stop attacking, that left them slumped in the trenches and the craters and the spaces between the barbed wire. But their bodies are still here. Their bodies are fertilizing the earth. Their bodies are turning the ground into something that grows things, that breeds things, that probably shouldn't be touched by human hands. You touch it anyway. Your hands are already stained beyond cleaning. The patrol moves in silence. You've learned that. Sound carries in ways that seem to violate physics. That a voice 300 meters away sounds like it's coming from inside your own skull, that the creatures, or whatever's left of them, or whatever's replacing them, can hear a whisper from a kilometer away. So you don't speak. No one speaks. The only sounds are the sounds of bodies moving through mud, boots squelching, the rattle of ammunition and supplies. The sounds of men who are so tired that their bodies make noise just by existing. Sergeant Cowell is leading today. You know this because he's the one walking point, the one whose silhouette you can see 50 meters ahead, the one who will die first if there's an ambush. Call has been point man for 3 weeks. The previous point man, you can't remember his name, which means you don't want to, lasted 4 days before something with too many limbs pulled him into a crevasse that opened in the earth without warning. Cal doesn't seem concerned about this. Cal seemed concerned about very little. Cal has the look of a man who's already dead and is just going through the motions of being alive because the alternative is not moving forward. And not moving forward means sitting still. And sitting still means thinking about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and whether any of it matters. You're thinking about it anyway. The thought arrives unbidden, like all the worst thoughts do, sudden, intrusive, impossible to dismiss. What are you patrolling for? What are you protecting? The creatures are gone. The hive world is gone. You received the letter 6 weeks ago, the one with the seal already broken, the one that said your world had been destroyed. Not destroyed in a metaphorical sense. Destroyed. Annihilated. The hive city you were born in, the hab blocks where your family lived, the streets where you played as a child before conscription took you away, all of it, gone. Vaporized. Turned into whatever passes for memory in the Imperium's vast and indifferent archives. So what are you defending? What line are you holding? The question doesn't have an answer. You know this. Asking the question is itself a kind of heresy, the kind of thought that gets you marked by a commissar if you say it aloud, the kind of doubt that spreads through a unit like contagion if you're not careful. So you don't ask it. You just let it sit in your skull while you walk, and while you watch Cowl's back, and while you listen to the sound of 17 other men. You counted this morning, then forgot the count, then counted again, breathing in the rhythm of the patrol. The ambush comes from the left. There's no warning, no sound, no moment where you could have seen it coming. One moment you're walking through mud, and the next moment, someone is screaming and you don't know who, because you've learned not to look at faces. But the scream is familiar in the way that all screams are familiar, in the way that you've heard enough screams to know the difference between pain and fear, and the moment when the human voice breaks, because the thing that's making the sound has stopped being human. You hit the ground. This is automatic now. The moment the first shot comes, or the first scream, or the first indication that something is wrong, your body flattens itself against the earth. Because standing up means dying, and dying means the creatures have won, and you haven't decided yet whether you want the creatures to win. But you know that you don't want to make it easy for them. The creatures are coming from the left and from above. You don't understand how they're above. You've been over this ground 100 times, and there's nothing above except sky. But they're there. Silhouettes against the clouds, moving with a speed that suggests they're falling or diving or attacking in some way that doesn't have a name in the human language. Cal is firing. You can hear his lasgun, the sharp crack of the bolts, the way the sound echoes off the crater walls. Other men are firing too. The noise is immense, overwhelming, a wall of sound that seems to push the air out of your lungs. You raise your own weapon and fire at the shapes above you, not sure if you're hitting anything, not sure if it matters anymore. Your finger pulls the trigger again and again until the shapes stop moving and the silence that follows feels like drowning. The letter arrives on a Tuesday that feels exactly like Monday, which felt exactly like Sunday, which felt exactly like every other day that's bled into the gray mass of time you stopped measuring weeks ago. You don't recognize it at first. Recognition requires attention, and attention is something you've learned to ration like ammunition. There's only so much of it in your skull before the well runs dry, before you become like Vess, present but absent, breathing but not alive, a body that follows orders because it's easier than thinking about what those orders mean. The mail comes in a crate. Everything comes in crates. Food comes in crates. Ammunition comes in crates. Replacement soldiers come in crates, pale and trembling and still capable of being shocked by things. The mail crate is smaller, marked with the Imperial Aquila and stamps from a dozen worlds you've never heard of. A corporal you don't know the name of starts distributing letters. Most of the men get nothing. Some get letters that arrived months ago. So old that the paper has started to deteriorate, so old that the sender might already be dead by the time the recipient reads them. Your name is called. You don't respond immediately. Your name doesn't feel like your name anymore. It feels like a sound that used to apply to someone who lived in a hab block and had a family and believed in things like the future. You respond to it out of habit, out of the automatic obedience that's been drilled into you until it's become as natural as breathing. The letter is thin, almost transparent. The envelope is marked with red wax, official seals, stamps that denote official channels and official procedures, and all the bureaucratic machinery of the Imperium grinding forward in its incomprehensible way. On the front, in handwriting you almost recognize but can't quite place, is your name and a unit designation and a world that you were born on, that you haven't thought about in so long that it feels like a place from someone else's dream. Below all of that, in a different hand, in thick black ink that's been stamped by what looks like a mechanical press, are 4 words. Return to sender. World destroyed. You stare at it. The words don't make sense. Not because they're unclear. The meaning is precise, crystalline, impossible to misinterpret, but because they don't connect to anything in your understanding of how the world works. Worlds don't get destroyed. Worlds are vast. Worlds are permanent. Worlds are the kind of thing that exists in the background of existence, the way the sky exists, the way gravity exists. You can die. Millions can die. Billions can die. But the world itself, the hive city where you were born, where your mother lived in a hab block on the 73rd level, where your sister worked in a factory processing vat meat, where your father... You can't remember your father's face. This thought arrives with more force than it should. Your father's face is gone. You've forgotten it. You were conscripted and trained and shipped off to die in a trench on a world you didn't know existed. And somewhere in that process, your father's face stopped being something you could picture. It became a shape, a general impression, an absence where a memory should be, and now your father is dead. Not dead in the way that soldiers die, quick, violent, comprehensible. Dead in the way that cities die, vaporized, scattered into the void, reduced to whatever passes for atoms when a world is destroyed. There's a moment, you think, when a city dies. A moment when someone, maybe the governor, maybe the last commissar standing, maybe just some random citizen looking up at the sky, realizes that it's over, that this is the end, that the world is ending and there's nothing to be done about it. You wonder if your mother was there for that moment. You wonder if she was looking up when the sky opened. You wonder if she was thinking about you. The letter falls from your fingers. You don't remember dropping it. You don't remember the moment when your hand stopped being able to hold it. You just become aware that the letter is on the ground and you're still standing and the world is still here and your family is not. And the Imperium continues to grind forward regardless of whether or not you're able to process what that means. Someone picks the letter up. You don't see who. Hands aren't individual anymore. Hands are just extensions of a system that keeps moving, that keeps functioning, that doesn't stop for grief or shock or the sudden understanding that everything you were fighting to protect has already been destroyed. Your hive? It's a voice you recognize. Call. The sergeant. The man who's been leading you through patrols for weeks and who's going to keep leading you through patrols because that's what sergeants do. They lead. They don't stop for personal tragedy. They don't acknowledge the moments when the men under their command have their entire understanding of reality demolished. You nod. You do this. You've learned to do this. You've learned to compartmentalize, to separate the part of you that's grieving from the part of you that's still a soldier, to function even when functioning feels like a betrayal of the people who are no longer alive to be betrayed. Gone, you say. Your voice sounds like it's coming from very far away. Call nods. He doesn't say he's sorry. He doesn't say anything about loss or tragedy or the fundamental unfairness of a universe where you're conscripted to fight for a world that's destroyed before you can even come home. He just nods and turns back to the crate of letters and continues distributing the mail to men who are all going to receive the same message. Eventually, or maybe they won't, maybe they'll go their entire lives not knowing that their families are gone, because the Imperium is too vast and too broken and too indifferent to make sure that everyone gets the information they need to understand that they're fighting for nothing. You pick the letter back up. The wax seals are still intact. The handwriting is still there, still trying to tell you something. You open it with fingers that don't feel like they belong to you anymore. The message inside is brief. A single sheet of thin paper, written in the same hand that addressed the envelope. The words are small, precise, the handwriting of someone who's writing with a purpose, who's writing because they have to, who's writing because the alternative is silence. Dear conscript, your world was destroyed on the 427th day of this year. The hive city of Megastra was targeted by orbital bombardment. The casualty estimates are total. There are no survivors. You read it 3 times. Then you fold the letter back into the envelope and sit in the mud with your lasgun across your knees, waiting for the sky to split open. The tremor starts small, a vibration you feel through the soles of your boots, so subtle that at first you think it's your own exhaustion, your own body shaking from something internal. Cold or fear, or the accumulated weight of 6 months of staying alive, when staying alive has stopped making sense. Then the seismic detector screams. It's a sound you've heard before, during training, during drills that felt theoretical and distant. Now it's here. Now it's real. Now it's coming from the observation post, and it's not stopping. The alarm is a wailing thing, a mechanical shriek that cuts through the mud and the trenches and the gray afternoon light that's starting to take on a color you don't have a word for. Something between purple and green. Something that shouldn't exist in a sky that's supposed to be sky. You're not the only one who notices. The entire line is moving now. Men are straightening up, looking toward the bunker, looking toward the officers, looking for someone to tell them what to do. This is the one thing you've learned with absolute certainty in 6 months of warfare. Men will do almost anything if someone tells them to do it with enough authority. Fear becomes manageable when there's an order attached to it. Uncertainty becomes bearable when there's a structure, a hierarchy, someone above you who's supposed to know what comes next. Sergeant Call is already moving. He's heading toward the command bunker, moving with a purpose that suggests he knows something, that he's heard something, that there's information being passed down the chain that hasn't reached the enlisted men yet. You watch him go, then look back at the trench, at the men around you. Faces you still don't know after 6 months, faces that have become familiar in the way that furniture becomes familiar, through sheer proximity rather than actual connection. The alarm stops. The silence that follows is worse. It's a silence that feels deliberate, that feels like someone has made a decision about the alarm and decided that the alarm is no longer necessary. You've learned to interpret silence in the trenches. Silence means the creatures have stopped attacking. Silence means something else has started. Silence means the officers know something that they're not telling you, and they've decided that what you don't know won't hurt you, or maybe it will hurt you, but it doesn't matter because you're going to die anyway. Call emerges from the bunker with 2 officers behind him. You recognize one of them? Lieutenant Kess, who's been with the unit for 3 months and who has the look of a man who's realized that the Imperium doesn't care about his survival or the survival of anyone under his command. The other officer is someone you've never seen before. He's wearing a coat that's too clean for the trenches, too well-maintained, too much like it was issued yesterday rather than 6 months ago. He's wearing the insignia of a captain, He's wearing the expression of a man who's bringing news that he doesn't want to deliver. Cowell is calling the unit together. The men are moving, slowly, reluctantly, but moving. You push yourself up from the trench wall, and your legs respond with a kind of complaint that's become familiar, a sharp ache that runs from your knees to your hips, a reminder that your body is still here, still functional, still capable of following orders even though you're not sure it should be. The gathering is quick, efficient. The captain stands in front of you all with his hands behind his back, and he doesn't say anything for a long moment. He just looks at you, looks at the mud on your uniforms, looks at the way your eyes are hollow, looks at the way you're all still standing, because standing is what you do when officers are present, because standing is what you've been trained to do, because standing is the only way to maintain the fiction that you're still soldiers rather than men who've been broken down to the component parts of obedience. The seismic activity is unprecedented, the captain says. His voice is clipped, military, the kind of voice that's trained to deliver information without emotional coloration. We're detecting subterranean disturbances across a radius of 40 kilometers. The pattern suggests. He pauses, considers, then continues. The pattern suggests something large is moving beneath the surface, something very large. The words hang in the air. Around you, you can feel the men processing this. You can feel the shift in the trench's atmosphere, the way fear crystallizes from something abstract into something specific, something large, something moving, something beneath the surface where you can't see it, can't shoot it, can't defend against it. Additional ammunition is being distributed, the captain continues. You will hold this line. Reinforcements are not available. The regiment is stretched to capacity across the entire northern sector. You will hold this line until further orders. Someone speaks. You don't see who, just hear the voice from somewhere in the crowd of men. And if we can't hold it, sir, the captain's expression doesn't change. Then you'll die holding it. That's the order. Cowell is already moving, already organizing the distribution of ammunition. Crates are being opened. Fresh batteries for lasguns, fresh charge packs, fresh magazines for the few ballistic weapons the unit has managed to scrounge. The ammunition is heavy, real. The kind of thing that makes you understand that this isn't theoretical anymore, that this isn't another patrol or another ambush or another day in the endless gray cycle of survival. This is the end of something. You don't know if it's the end of the war or the end of your life or the end of the world or some combination of all three, but you know. With the kind of certainty that comes from 6 months of learning to read the signs, that something fundamental has shifted. The ground beneath your feet is moving. The sky above your head is changing color. The officers are distributing ammunition and telling you to hold the line and not mentioning evacuation, not mentioning retreat, not mentioning anything except holding and dying, and the implicit understanding that those two things are the same. The tremor comes again, stronger this time. You feel it through your entire body, feel it in your teeth, feel it in the way the trench walls shift slightly, sending little cascades of mud down into the firing positions. Around you, men are gripping their weapons tighter. Some are praying. You can hear the whispered words, prayers to the Emperor, prayers to Sanguinius, prayers to gods that you stopped believing in a long time ago. You don't pray. You just load your lasgun and check your ammunition and try not to think about the fact that you're holding a weapon that fires light at something that's moving beneath the earth itself, something that doesn't bleed light but drinks it, and your magazine holds 37 shots and you've already done the math that matters. The sky doesn't split so much as tear. It happens slowly enough that you have time to watch it, which is the cruelty of it. If it were quick, if the heavens just opened and swallowed you whole, there would be mercy in the speed. But this is measured, deliberate. The purple light that's been creeping into the atmosphere for the last hour begins to intensify, and the clouds that have hung gray and static above the trench line for 6 months suddenly start moving. Not blown by wind, moving with purpose, parting like flesh opening under a blade. The thing behind them is vast beyond your ability to comprehend vastness. It's not a ship. You've seen ships in the sky before? The Valkyries that brought you here, the transport vessels that pass overhead occasionally, bringing supplies or taking away the bodies. This isn't a ship. Ships are things that humans made, things that have a comprehensible size, a beginning and an end. This is something else. This is something that makes the concept of size feel small. This is something that exists at a scale that your brain refuses to process, so instead you just see it in fragments. A curve of something that might be a hull, a pattern of light that might be an eye, a vast protrusion that might be a weapon, or might be a limb, or might be something that doesn't have a name in any language the Imperium has ever spoken. The seismic detector isn't wailing anymore. It's beyond wailing. It's beyond the range of sounds that mechanical devices are supposed to make. It's a continuous shriek that's become background noise, that's become as much a part of the atmosphere as the purple light, as the trembling earth, as the way your hands have started shaking in a way you can't control anymore. Around you, men are frozen, not in fear. Fear would imply that they still have the capacity for normal emotional responses. They're frozen in a state beyond fear, in a state of witnessing something so fundamentally wrong that the mind can't integrate it, can't file it away as something that makes sense. Some are still holding their weapons. Some have dropped them. Some are praying louder now. The whispered words becoming urgent, becoming desperate, becoming the last thing they have left to do because doing anything else would require believing that prayer could matter against something like this. Call's voice cuts through the chaos. Steady. Measured. The voice of a man who's made peace with something, or at least decided that panic serves no functional purpose. Load your final magazines, he says. Lock them in and chamber around. We hold the line. You move because moving is what you do. Your hands are shaking, but they remember the motions. Muscle memory. The thing that the drill abbot beat into you for 14 hours a day, stripping and reassembling your lasgun until you could do it in the dark, until you could do it while screaming, until you could do it after your fingers had gone numb from cold. You slide the magazine home. It locks with a click that feels final. You chamber around. The familiar weight of a charged weapon. The familiar sensation of holding something that's supposed to protect you from death, but which everyone knows is just a way of choosing which kind of death you get. The thing in the sky is still moving. It's descending, or the sky is descending toward it, or perspective has stopped being a reliable way to understand the world. The purple light is brighter now. It's not colored light anymore. It's something else, something that hurts to look at, something that makes your eyes water and your head pound and your vision start to blur at the edges. You turn away from it, focus on the trench, on the familiar lines of sandbags and firing positions and the men who've been your entire world for 6 months. Vess is next to you. He hasn't spoken to you since the night you shot the thing instead of letting it take him. 6 months of silence. 6 months of him staying just far enough away that you can't quite hear his breathing. He's looking at you now, and for the first time since that night, there's something other than emptiness in his eyes. There's recognition. There's understanding. There's the acknowledgement that you were both just doing what you had to do, and that it doesn't matter anymore because whatever comes next isn't going to care about the things you did or didn't do in the dark. It was good serving with you, he says. You nod. You don't know what else to do. You don't know how to say goodbye to someone you've lived in a trench with, someone whose breathing you've listened to through endless nights, someone who's been a stranger and a companion and a mirror of your own dissolution all at the same time. The tremor is constant now. The ground isn't shaking so much as vibrating, a deep resonance that you feel in your bones, in your teeth, in the way your vision jitters slightly with each pulse. The trench walls are cracking. Mud is sliding down in larger quantities now. Around you, men are gripping their weapons tighter, as if holding them harder could change the outcome of whatever comes next. The purple light is everywhere. It's not coming from the sky anymore, it's coming from beneath you. The earth itself is glowing. The thing that was behind the clouds is now visible even when you're not looking at it. Visible in the way the light bends and refracts, visible in the shadows it casts, visible as a presence so enormous and so present that the concept of distance stops being meaningful. You wait. This is what you've learned to do. Wait. Hold the line, follow orders. Remain in position. The training has stripped away everything except the capacity to wait, and the waiting has become your entire existence. You wait through the tremors. You wait through the light. You wait through the moment when the ground beneath the trench begins to shift in a way that's no longer random, in a way that suggests something intentional is happening. Something deliberate is occurring beneath the surface. Something is rising. The eastern wall of the trench collapses inward, not from erosion or the tremors, but because something beneath it has pushed. Something vast. Something that's been moving through the earth, through the bedrock, through the kilometers of stone and soil that separate the surface world from whatever depths it came from. The thing breaks through like a whale breaching, and the comparison is the only one your mind can make because it's the only frame of reference you have for something so large that it defies comprehension. It's not a creature. Not exactly. It's too geometric for that. It's all angles and protrusions and surfaces that catch the purple light in ways that hurt to perceive. It's decorate D with what might be eyes or might be wounds, 1,000 of them, all turning toward the sound of your breathing.